What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and unit review of Young Xander, our latest Grail free-to-play unit. So he's a Sword Cavalier with 190 BST and he does come with a preferred weapon in Sword of Dust. So it's a 16 might weapon which does give him +3 attack, so essentially a 19 might weapon, and it does have Canto remaining +1 built in it, and minimum you're going to be getting Canto 2 out of it. So that is extremely good because that eliminates the need of having Cigarette Ring. It's mainly going to be giving you +1 movement and he already gets the Canto out of the weapon, so that can help with the flexibility as you get to run other rings on him. He also has a supportive effect which is going to be debuffing the foes in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on him, so it has effectively got the range of a Crux skill and he's going to be debuffing the foes in that range for -5 attack, speed and defense, and then he nullifies any kind of special charging effects of the enemies in the combat. So if they have any kind of special charges status, the purple one, or they have got any kind of skill like Special Fighter, Flash Sparrow, then they're not going to be able to get the special charges out of them, and that is a good effect defensively because it is pretty much the defensive tempo effect, and we have seen this on a couple of weapons like for Deucel's weapon refined, so it is present on a free-to-play unit, and this can help you not get nuked by these specials. But of course there is a lot of preempt pulses that you'll have to watch out for, and that is going to be enabling the specials of the enemies anyways. But this is still a good effect to have defensively, and then it is going to be giving you the guaranteed follow-up attacks against the foes in that range. So it is again going to be like the Crux skill, so you can give the guaranteed follow-up attack support to your allies which may not have the skills for getting that immediately. And then if he's at or above 25% HP, then he's going to be getting up to +9 to all of his stats depending on the number of foes in 3 rows and 3 columns multiplied by 3. So the more foes that you have, the more stats you're going to be getting. The reason why he's given +9 to all of his stats instead of +14 is because he technically gets the remaining stats out of the Crux effect in his primary condition, so that's why he gets max 9 out of this. And then he has got true damage and flat damage reduction based on X% of his defense, and this X is going to be dependent on if the foe is above half health or not. And this is a bit reminiscent of Legendary Xander, and it does take inspiration from his remix Chivalry. So if the enemy is above that threshold, then you're going to be getting 25% of your defense as the true damage and as the flat damage reduction, which is quite high and actually the highest for a free-to-play unit. Previously, the highest flat damage reduction that we had on a free-to-play Grail unit was on Marnie, and that was 15%. But here, on the low end, you're going to be getting 15% if the enemy is below half health. And on the higher end, you're going to be getting 25% flat damage reduction. So it is a lot of flat damage reduction, but it is balanced by the fact that Xander is a Cavalier, so he does not have access to a lot of infantry skills, so not able to meaningfully stack up the flat damage reduction too much. There are slotty options like fortifications and excel skills, which he of course wants to run and stack up his flat damage reduction. So this weapon is quite decent, and he doesn't come with a preferred skill unfortunately. That would have helped him tremendously, but he does have Lull Attack Defense 3 at 5-star, which we finally have in the Grail pool. Lull skills have been long overdue in my opinion to be in the free-to-play pool. They are just a budget option at this point. We literally have Dull All effect on so many of the units that they can give out as a supportive effect. And then he also has Attack Defense Clash 3 at 4-star, so he can be the bridge fodder for the Excel skill or the tier 4 version of the Clash skill. And looking at his stats, he does have really high attack stat at base 48, which does have a super boon, and he also has base 48 defense. So it is pretty good for just stacking it up and making the full use out of the true damage and flat damage reduction that he can get out of his weapon. And he also has a resistance super boon, even though his resistance is not the highest, and he's definitely going to be taking quite a bit of damage from dragons and also from mages. And there's of course a lot of the Hexblade effects that we have got on units like Emblem Erica, and before that, Brave Felix. So his stat spread is quite min-maxed, and there isn't really a competition for his attack and defense stat spread. As you can see, he does outshine Mavier and Young Frederick in that regard, and of course he gets a lot more true damage and also the flat damage reduction out of this weapon. So not only he's bulkier, but he also hits much harder, and he can also be compared to some of the premium sword cavaliers like Legendary Seliph and Rearmed Lif. Rearmed Lif was the first rearmed unit to come out, so he didn't have the most insane preferred skill, so it doesn't really give him too much, and he's pretty much going to be waiting for the third arcane sword to maybe give him the flat damage reduction. Legendary Seliph, on the other hand, does have Null Counter Disrupt, Echo, the Brave attacks in the enemy phase, and also the Miracle effect, which does help and can give him the flexibility, but sadly he is missing out on the flat damage reduction that Xander has got. So Young Xander is pretty decent. Of course he's not insane, but still he is above the sword cavaliers that we have got. And here we have got the comparison to his original version and also Bertram. And Bertram is going to be getting the refine after we get the Choose Your Legend 7 refines this year. So there is a while, and again, I'm just showing Arcane Devourer as a placeholder for the third arcane sword whenever that comes out. And if it's going to be coming out, then it's likely going to be having the flat damage reduction similar to Arcane Giant Axe. And if you're going to be building up a team with him, then he is going to be appreciating any kind of flat damage reduction support from Setith, and he also gets the Dull All support out of him. So you're probably going to be running other expensive skills in his slot B, and you're not going to be running the lull attack defense that he comes with, so it can help. And then Attuned Azura can also give him the Insighted status and also the +1 movement. Even Null follow-up that she gives out isn't the worst thing for him, because he is slow, but he is not as slow as many of the armors. He's a bit faster than them, so at least he can deny the doubles. And because he doesn't get any kind of AoE damage reduction, Attuned Hector's Stone Terrain can help, and he can also function as a good Far Savior to protect him as Xander takes on the melee matchups. And then Ninja Lucina provides a bunch of support, true damage support in middle of the turn, and she also gives out the Future Witness status, so that can give you the player phase scal effect. So when you're going to be nuking with Xander, not only you can get the effect out of his Crux effect to deny any kind of special charges, but you also get the scal effect out of Future Witness. And then Jill did get a refine where she can just give out the extra movement to any kind of melee ally. And any kind of unit that can double down on the 3 rows and 3 column range to give him more support can be helpful. Desert Marissa can give you the Brave effect if you're not going to be running the Emblem Erica ring on Xander. And Spring Aether is actually really fast and a really good unit. And she also has the Guard in Combat Panic Crux in her weapon. So the Guard effect along with the Null special charges of Xander is going to be having good synergy. There's also Lumera with the Null Guard, and she also gives out the Stone Terrain. Mirabilis also has the Guard Crux if you have got the penalty on the foes in that range. And now we have just got Dual Lens Weapon Refine, which does give you the 50% damage reduction piercing. So if you're missing that on your Young Xander, then she can help you. And she can also function as a good ranged nuke along with him. And being a cavalry unit, any kind of Pathfinder unit like Dagger, Thiazi are going to be good teammates with him. And Otter does give you the unhindered movement and Insighted status, and he is basically your best support unit to get past the Trench Childs as a Cavalier if you're going to be using him in something like Summoner Duels. So that support can help. And then we've got Spring Plumeria who can give you the Frozen status, a lot of debuffs, the Preempt Pulse support, a ton of support, and also refreshes your Kanto. And of course, Legendary Sakura is a menace who can help you hit and run without any kind of care for the Kanto control of the world. And she can help you with the offensive playstyle if you want to make use of the true damage that he gets and just go in and out while trying to nuke. If you're going to be building up Xander on a budget, then you can simply give him the Emblem Erica ring so that he can get the Brave effect. That can help him as he already has the Kanto in his weapon. You can also run Emblem Marth ring actually to have a lower cooldown because his weapon, being a free-to-play unit, of course, does not have Slaying built in it. And you can also just give him Attack Tactics so that he can support his allies and run a Clash Sacred Seal so that he can double down with his slot A. And that's going to be doing a fine job on a budget with his preferred weapon. He can still hit hard and be a bit more tanky than your usual unit because of having this kind of preferred weapon. But if you want to invest a bit more into him, then you could make use of the Divine Codes fodder with Grandpa Mycin and also Winter Dimitri providing you with no quarter, and he already comes with the prerequisite in Attack Defense Clash 3, so it's pretty easy to get the skills out of Grandpa Mycin. And if you have an extra Brave Alphonse, then you can also mix up his fodder with Winter Dimitri, and you're going to be able to run Reopening, which is not always going to be giving you the full mileage because he does have the Crux effect in his weapon. But keep in mind that against a lot of the very fast units that have null follow-up, you're not going to be able to get the guaranteed follow-up attack against them. So against them, you get the leverage out of it. But if you, double, of course, you get the 10% of his defense as the true damage and flat damage reduction. But it's at least something. Cavaliers, as I said, do not have a lot of options to stack up the flat damage reduction. Fortifications also gives him the distant counter effect and also the stone terrain, which can help him take on the AoE specials because, again, his weapon does not give him any kind of AoE damage reduction, so that kind of stone terrain can help. And if you run some other ally with any kind of terrain, then fortifications also helps with that. And because we're running Reopening, Emblem Erica Ring is not recommended because, again, Reopening is literally not going to be giving you the leverage if you get the Brave attack. So that's why Celica Ring or Emblem Marth Ring is to be used with this kind of build. Of course, Reopening is definitely not the best lot B scale, but if you do not have the other expensive fodder, then this is also a route that you can take. However, if you do have the expensive fodder, then he does appreciate having Attack Defense Excel and Momentum, and he can run Emblem Celica Ring so that he can warp, and then he can get the Brave effect out of Desert Marissa. Haste Slice with Momentum means that you can stack up the pre-impulses and immediately trigger Haste Slice, then get the damage reduction from it in the player phase, and this way you're able to be a lot more bulky and annoying in your player phase. You also stack up the flat damage reduction with the Excel skill, and with his weapon, his survivability is going to be pretty annoying. So this is a player phase focused way of building him up. Shadow Shift does come with Haste Slice from Valentine Dimitri, so it's also good scale because it does give you healing, and that is one of the things he's kind of missing with this kind of build. So it's not the worst thing, and it can also give you the utility. And if you're going to be wanting to run more of a mixed phase build, then of course Fortifications is going to be one of your options. Not only gives you the visible defense and resistance, which can help you tank off the physical AoE hits, but it also helps you set up the stone terrain or get the distant counter effect if you have the stone terrain. And then with Assault Force, his best slot B skill in my opinion, you're able to get the true damage that can scale off his defense, so he can hit really hard while being quite bulky. So it's a good mix of bulk and power. And Assault Force does give you the null debuffs effect, which can help you protect against the common debuffs. Breath of Life also scales really well with him, and that's also one of the support that he can provide to his allies if you're going to be using him with someone like a Tuned Hector, for example. And Xander's own defense is pretty high, so Breath of Life does scale nicely. And when you're going to be focusing on tanking and even tanking the range hits, maybe with the fortifications and its distant counter effect, then Hardy Bearing is a Sacred Seal that can help you against the Desperation nukes. And as I said, Lalaco is going to be the main attune skill a lot of the times for these Cavaliers. But at absolute max investment, you can definitely try and mix up the builds that I previously did show here. So by mixing up these two builds, you're able to have Haste Slice, Attack Defense Excel, and his weapon giving you the flat damage reduction. And then you get the Brave hits out of the Emblem Erica Ring, which is going to be hurting with the amount of true damage that he can get out of his weapon and Assault Force. You also get the Piercing out of Assault Force, so no quarter is not always going to be needed for the full Piercing, and you can also opt for Haste Slice at this kind of investment. We do not have Attack Defense Inside Hone, so he can take Attack Resistance Inside Hone from his baby brother Leo, and that way he can have the Insided status if you're not going to be running Attuned Azura. And Distant Counter Echo could be run as the Sacred Seal, just in case he gets attacked in the enemy phase, but this kind of Haste Slice build is going to be a bit more towards the player phase action, and he can hit really hard from there. So trying to fully tank with the Cavaliers usually doesn't go the best unless you're someone like Brave Alphonse, of course. So that's why going in and abusing your nuking power as a Cavalier, taking advantage of the mobility and the brave attack and the true damage is definitely one of the ways of using his preferred weapon. And as you have seen with these ascended assets, sometimes I go with attack and defense, and sometimes I go with defense and resistance. So it really depends on the route you want to take. If you want to go the more of a player phase route, then attack and defense is going to be the choice. But if you want to go with the fortifications route, then of course that is going to be the option you should be picking for maximizing on your bulk. He does have the resistance super boon, and trying to increase his resistance is going to be helping you because he gets a lot of flat damage reduction out of his weapon. So at this kind of max investment, that can certainly even help you take the magical hits. And now let's take a look at some of the focus builds for the competitive modes. So you can definitely use him in Arena if you're going to be plus and merging him. He doesn't score as high as Marnie or Panette, but he can score about as same as Lumera and Holst, which are kind of old units. So distant counter melee Sacred Seal is going to be needed for the scoring. And in Arena, Fatal Smoke 4 is absolutely a must because you're going to be facing Marnies every single match. So having the flat damage reduction, the true damage, all can help you just take care of her and her non-special miracle with Fatal Smoke and this kind of build. And Assault Force is a really good skill for so many of these Cavaliers, including Xander. And if you're going to be using him in Aether Raids defense, then he could be used because he does have that bulk, and he could try and use him as a rally up trap unit. So basically what he does is he gets the extra action out of Hathran's Divine Nectar, and then he goes up ahead and rallies, then initiates on the enemy, sets up his stone terrain with the fortifications, and then overrides any kind of stone terrain or any kind of terrain that the enemy may have. So that can be really annoying for the enemy, and he can get quite bulky with Flow Guard, which also has the player phase scowl innately, and it also has the full null follow-up. So against the very slow armors, they're not going to be able to double attack him, and he's going to be surviving and then inflicting them with the null miracle status to get rid of their non-special miracles that they may be taking advantage of from Duo Rhea. And usually you're going to be seeing people tank a bit more in the Astra season, so that's why he could fit into an Anima team if you really want to use him in Aether Raids defense. And then finally, if you want to use him in Summoner Duels, then Fortifications is the way to go so that you can go in with him, attack, and use Emblem Erica Ring. Mystic Boost Sacred Seal is going to be helpful because that is going to be the den of Emblem Erica, so you're going to be facing a lot of them, and trying to disable her Hexblade damage is something that may prove to be useful in that game mode after you get really bulky with fortifications and setting it up. You can also try and focus on your player phase by using Ninja Lucina, trying to pre-charge his Haste Slice so that he can go in and attack and make sure that he can survive, and then spread the Null Miracle out of Fatal Smoke. So Fatal Smoke in the competitive game modes is a really advantageous skill that if you can slot into some kind of unit, it is going to be helping you a ton, because in Arena there's going to be Marnies, and in other game modes there's also going to be Duo Rhea. You can click the link on Instagram right now to check out my breakdown of the weapon refines of this month, and you can also subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as original Xander from book 1, seeing his young version absolutely blow him out of the water. So with that, so let's see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.